Kurt Schlichter, retired U.S. Army infantry. I'm guest hosting for the great Hugh Hewitt, and I could not be happier because, for one thing, you're going to experience some of the most incredible bumper music of all time. That's right. Dwayne's bumper music, always good when he guest hosts. I listened yesterday, and it was okay. There was some good stuff, but mine is going to just kick it. All right, we are going to apply a combat boot to the rear end of your musical tastes. I am so happy, folks. I am so overjoyed. I am also a senior contributor over at townhall.com. You can read me every Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. Follow me on Twitter at Kurt Schlichter. And, of course, get my books, the Kelly Turnbull People's Republic series, and my new book, The Attack, which is still selling very well after about a year. But I got to tell you, I feel like America dodged a giant bullet, and that bullet was shaped like Kamala Harris, and she was pretty much as smart as about an ounce of lead. Every day for the last 2 weeks, I woke up and said, wow, I still have a country. I still have a country that I'm allowed to be a part of. I still have the ability to speak freely, to assemble, to petition for the redress of my grievances, to keep and bear arms, and, of course, not to have soldiers quartered in my house except in a manner provided by Congress. So I'm just joyous. Loving a lot of Trump's picks for his cabinet. It is remarkable how fast Donald Trump is moving. It is remarkable how much Donald Trump has learned. You know, they like to think that Donald Trump is some sort of bizarre man-child who is incapable of changing or modifying. Did they not see his campaign? Because the Donald Trump we saw in 2024 was not Donald Trump we saw in 2016, nor Donald Trump we saw in 2020. It was disciplined. It was professional. Donald Trump was not going out there and tweeting stuff about Rosie O'Donnell. He was focused. He was clear. And it is clear that Donald Trump has learned from what happened in his first term when he was ambushed, sidetracked, and bushwhacked by the garbage establishment. And the will of the American people that put him in office was infringed upon. They screwed up his first term. He's not having it. He is coming right out of the gate with a bunch of great picks, and a couple picks had me scratching my head. But I'm excited. Just yesterday, Sean Duffy, who was a congressman, he's also noted for having about 600 children. Like myself, his wife is a very beautiful Latino American, Latinx. I'm very impressed by that, because if you can handle the Latin heat, you can certainly handle a bunch of bureaucrats in Washington. And, of course, he's very qualified for Department of Transportation because he was on the first series of MTV's Road Rules. So just there, he literally has more transportation experience than Pete Buttigieg, who will not be missed. Mostly because he was never actually present Department of Transportating. It is, he is, Pete Buttigieg is, let's call it the Pete principle, okay? He was raised up to his level of incompetence. Sean Duffy will be great. There's some other great picks out there. Some of them very prominent, some not so prominent. The VA director, Doug Collins, former congressman, radio host, veteran, friend of mine. I've done his, he was a radio host. I've done his show many times. He is a great guy, and he is going to get in there and fix the VA. I couldn't be happier, speaking on behalf of veterans, and veterans are very happy about the Pete Hegseth pick. Now, I will admit, when I first saw the Pete Hegseth pick, I was out to a dinner with my unbelievably attractive wife in Texas, and I was just getting a fine Chianti, and my wife looks at me and goes, "He just picked Pete Hegseth for SecDef," and I kind of said, well, I can't say what I actually said, on the radio because I think the FCC would be unhappy. But let's just say I didn't see the logic. I knew Pete Hegseth was a guy on Fox News. I knew he had served honorably as a soldier. I didn't know anything more about him. And I actually texted to Dwayne, said, "Wait a minute, what's happening?" You remember that? I was like, I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, no, you text me right away, and we had a little back and forth for a while. And
I didn't know who the guy. I was like, I don't understand. And I texted Hugh and I said, well, I'm afraid they're going to try and John Tower the guy.
I think he's going to make it.
I think he's going to make it too. In fact, I have come around. I am now Pete Hegseth's greatest fan. I learned more about him. I had not read his book. I did not know that this guy is a real thinker. Now, I wrote about this in Town Hall yesterday, that Pete Hegseth will give the Pentagon an injection of vitamin I being infantry. Yeah. You got to understand. Now, I was a combat arms officer. I was an infantry officer. When you become a commander of a unit, and I've commanded many units, you sign a paper saying, I assume command. All right, but you're officially the commander in the books. You are not the commander until you take command. You are not the commander until you step up with whip and chair in hand and take charge over these predators assigned to your unit. These are infantry soldiers, infantry officers, infantry NCOs, and they give no slack. Their job, close with the enemy, destroy him through fire and maneuver. If you presume to lead them, you've got to earn that. And how do you do that? You walk in, and folks, you put heads on pikes. Somebody's going to screw up. Somebody's going to tell you, no, sir, that can't be done. No, sir, I'm not going to do that. No, sir, I'm going to undercut you. I am not going to complete your intent. If you're an infantry officer, and Pete Hegseth is an infantry officer, you know instinctively that's when you throw down. You're the commander. You're not going to take no for an answer. Pete Hegseth needs to walk into those generals and say, hey, here's how this is going to be. This little meeting here, this isn't a decision briefing where I come to a conclusion. This is not a course of action briefing where you suggest ideas to me. This is an orders brief, General. This is an orders brief, Admirals. This is where I tell you what you're going to do. And for example, the first thing you're going to do is clear that DEI garbage out of the military. When I say out, I mean no more, I mean done, I mean over. I mean every single soldier in a DEI-related slot transferred to a combat unit where he can actually contribute to the military rather than making it weaker and lamer. No more Maori appreciation months. No more drag queen story hours. No more weird trans stuff. If you're a man, you wear the male uniform. If you're a female, you wear the female uniform. And we don't have pronouns in the military. He's or he's, she's or she's. Are we clear, generals and admirals? Does anyone here have a question about my intent? Because you damn well better clear it up before you walk out of here, because you're coming back. You're coming back here in 4 days. And I'm going to go around the table and I'm going to go, General, have you complied with my order? And if your answer is anything but an unequivocal yes, sir, I am going to relieve you for cause. But I'm not going to let you retire. No, we're going to keep you on active duty until I determine what rank you last served satisfactorily in. Because that's the rank you'll retire in. Spoiler alert, generals and admirals, that rank is not the rank that you got relieved in. Because if you get relieved for cause, by definition, you didn't serve satisfactorily. So, before you leave, generals and admirals, If you have any questions about my intent, you better have them cleared up. Because you're coming back, and you're going to answer to me. I love it! Pete Hegseth, SecDef, and all these other guys. This is going to be great. I'm so happy. The cavalry has arrived. Gary Owen, folks. I am Kurt Schlichter, guest hosting for the great Hugh Hewitt, and man, we are so back. I was just in the control room here at the Hugh Hewitt studio with Dwayne Patterson, ace producer, looking at the Fox feed, and there was a little stream of an American soccer player, and he scored a goal over Jamaica, and he did the Trump dance. He's doing the Trump dance. All the sports ball guys are doing the Trump dance. The football guys after they make a home run or whatever it is.
Yes. All the home runs that are hit in football. Yes.
I don't do sports ball, but yes. I do like that they're all doing the Trump dance. The thing is, Kamala Harris was supposed to be about the joy. I don't see much joy there. I just see this kind of the kind of joy of you will of an HR director demanding that you all come down and have some forced fun at the at the picnic.
I've been making this point for the last couple of days, and that is that whether you love or hate Trump is an irrelevant conversation. But love him or hate him, the one thing that Donald Trump has done is made Republicans cool again.
He has made them cool. He's made them happy, and he's going to make the economy great. And I want to talk a little about that. I want to talk about American Federal, 800-221-7694. Look, there are a bunch of good reasons to buy gold and silver. Bank failures, digital currency volatility, emerging market countries trying to topple the dollar as a global reserve currency. AmFed gold, coin, and bullion is Hugh's choice for precious metals. And look, even in good times, gold and silver, great investment. But I'm not giving investment advice. I want to make sure that's clear. If you ask AmFed owner Nick Grovich to simplify the case for precious metals, he'll tell you that when President Roosevelt recalled the gold in circulation and paid people with paper money, they received a $20 bill for a $20 gold piece. Today, that $20 bill won't even fill up your gas tank, but the gold piece is worth over $2,600. Which would you rather own? Now, look, let's simplify the reasons to use AmFed, coin, and bullion. Nick's been in this industry for over 42 years, and he's proud of providing transparency and fair pricing to build trusted relationships. If you're interested in buying or selling, call Nick and his team at AmFed, coin, and bullion, 800-221-7694. AmericanFederal.com. AmericanFederal.com. Look, the economy I got to say, the economy is everything. The economy is everything here. Now you're going to go, Kurt, what about fixing the military? That's very important. Kurt, what about fixing the border? Super important. Kurt, what about free speech? Super important. Kurt, what about the right and keep and bear arms? Oh, that's important. But all this stuff, all these achievements depend on one thing. That's getting the economy right. And I wrote about this at Town Hall last week. We have got to make America the 80s again. If you are like me, and I will, the day before Christmas, I will turn 60. So I was, I was a college kid and a young Army officer in the 80s, and you could feel the excitement. There was a buzz in the air. The music was incredible. We had Miami Vice going on. It was a great time, but it was the economy, the Reagan economy that underpinned it all. It was the foundation. You have to get the economy right. Look, Donald Trump built this new coalition, a coalition that doesn't look like any other Republican coalition ever. And and all the things I mentioned were important. Getting rid of wokeness was important. Getting America secure again, that was important. Getting criminals off the street, that was all important. But the big issue, and the elected officials will tell you this when they went out and talked to people, it was the economy. Trump has to get the economy right. He should be picking his economic team soon. And I think it's good that he's taking some time to do it. I think it's good he's thinking it through. But if you don't get the economy right, you are going to lose the House and maybe even the Senate in 2026, and you're going to be neutered. And there's a very good chance we'll lose in 2028. And then everything goes to hell. Trump's got to get the economy right. Trump has to get the economy right. It's the economy, stupid. And I think Donald Trump knows that. He's a businessman. He's a guy who knows a little something about money. If you look at the stock in Trump media, through the roof, to the moon. Liz Sheld is in the house. Liz Sheld, editor at American Greatness. You can follow her at Star Chambermaid on the Twitter. I refuse to call it X. Hi, Liz. How you feeling?
I am feeling like a winner.
I know.
A lot of winning, so winful.
Are you tired of all the winning?
No, I'm not yet. I'm not tired, and I'm looking forward to another day of more winning.
Oh, there's been so much winning. Even like the kind of esoteric nomination picks are cool. Sean Duffy for Department of Transportation, because he was on road rules. I think that, and thereby literally has more transportation experience than Pete Buttigieg.
Oh, well, that isn't hard. I mean, let's be honest.
Well, how many kids does he have? 48?
They are like baby factories. I mean, they're raising an army. The Duffys have raised an army.
Nothing wrong with that.
No.
He's another one who appreciates the Latin heat, so to speak. Of course, you're very familiar with my wife, Irina, so...
Yes.
Oh, my gosh, Liz. Every day I wake up full of joy. I was told that Kamala Harris was about the joy. I don't know. I just want to sit here and do the Trump dance.
Oh, like everybody. I mean, it's like the hottest thing. And you know what's really great about it is that people have thrown off the shackles that have been put on us, like we're supposed to be ashamed. And now people are just openly with the MAGA hats. So they're openly saying they're Trump supporters, and now you have NFL footballers out there doing a Trump dance.
Yeah, it's almost like the 80s with Reagan, when people, being Republican was cool. Being a Democrat meant you were an uptight scold.
Yeah, well, liberal was a dirty word. Remember in the 80s? It was like, are you a liberal? That was a bad word.
Oh, it was
and we're back now. We're back.
It was being a liberal was gross, and I want the 80s back, and I include the music in that because the music today is auto-tuned and terrible.
Horrible. Agreed. I'm Gen X like you. I'm feral.
Give me a little Clash. Get me some Men Without Hats. Exactly. I want the safety dance.
Absolutely.
I think we have our next bumper music. Liz, let's look at these some of these nominations. What do you think of Pete Hegseth for Department of Defense?
No, I think he's great, and I think the most important thing is that he's Trump's choice. That is, whoever Trump picks for these slots, they are Trump's choice. He's going to be the president again, and the Democrats do not undergo the same level of scrutiny or media slandering or defamation as the Republicans. Does anyone really remember the confirmation process for Joe Biden's picks when he was, after he was inaugurated? Does anyone remember the hearings and the hit pieces and the salaciousness? No, nobody remembers. They were rubber stamped. The Republicans were on board. Nobody gave it, there was no withdrawals, no scandals. So, the most important thing to remember is that this is really supposed to be a formality. It's not supposed to be a trial and a witch hunt that the left has turned it into. So overall, I'm happy. I think they're all good picks. So I look forward to a swift confirmation process. Let's go.
Well, let's see what John Thune can do. Look, I think the Senate has a constitutional responsibility to advise and consent. I also think it has a moral responsibility to allow the people's representative, that is the president, to get pretty much the team he wants unless there's a real problem. And here's the thing, you're talking about they've already tried to slander Pete Hegseth. They're trying to make him into John Tower 2.0. And, they put out a couple nasty things about him. And Republicans were like, man, what else you got? I mean, we're just not playing anymore.
That's so important because this kind of behavior from the left, it needs to stop. And the way it stops is if they learn a lesson. And that lesson is that it doesn't work. And that's why I'm so strong about no scouts, nobody's the sacrificial lamb here. They get absolutely nothing because they will keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. So they need to be taught a lesson that this doesn't work. I'm not interested in your gossip, your salacious stories. I don't care.
I look. You're absolutely right. I think the big loser this cycle, besides Kamala Harris and Tim Walz,
I forgot about him already.
I know, right?
Like who?
The stolen valor, Mr. I've Got a Secret. He's yikes. I just. I mean, the biggest loser has to be the regime media because, 60 Minutes comes out this Sunday and says, here are Trump's nominees and here are the problems with them. And it's like, meh, nobody cares. Remember
Nobody cares. Look,
it used to matter.
No, I think that you can only cry wolf so many times.
Yep.
And the media has been crying wolf about Trump and Trump-related issues for 10 years. None of it's been proven true. They may have their Pulitzers, but what they don't have is the trust of the public. I mean, polls show after polls show that even it just keeps going lower of how many people trust the media. So, I tell people who listen to my podcast, I tell people just in person, when you see the mainstream media put a story out there, the first thing you need to ask yourself is, why is this story there, and why do they want me to believe this? Not what's in the story, and not even giving them the assumption of that it's an accurate story, that they're telling you the truth, that they're giving you something because it's newsworthy. No, the reason it's there, why is that? Because that's what the media's purpose is. It is simply a propaganda outlet.
And we're seeing it with elected officials not running around like chickens with their heads cut off when the Washington Post says, oh, Pete Hegseth is an icky guy. And you don't see, Senator Stiff out there going, well, we've got to look into these very serious charges. No. They're not doing that anymore. They've actually, to use your formulation, Liz Sheld of American Greatness, they seem to know what time it is. Not all of them.
Yes.
Okay.
But most of them. No, there's always like a Cheney or a Kinzinger. They're useless. You can't, you can't rehabilitate them. But for the most part, I think that Trump's victory and the degree to which he won, wasn't a squeaker. It was really just a massive repudiation, has put these people in check a little bit.
Well, that hasn't stopped the election denial. I mean, Josh Shapiro, who is pretty much the only Democrat who I thought had a chance to come across as normal, he got sucked into this whole Bob Casey election denial, election defiance thing in Pennsylvania. I think he's trashing his. I think he's trashing his image, and that's great because I think he is one of the few guys who could actually be a threat in 2028.
Oh no, I agree. I mean, it's like a self-own. Right? He's absolutely undermining his credibility and the appearance of legitimacy by getting behind this. And the interesting thing is that there's massive amounts of public support for election integrity efforts, right? People want to know the elections are secure. And when you see something so insane in Pennsylvania where they're counting ballots without signatures, without verification, with no dates on it, it's so obvious what's going on now. After what we've been through, it's so clear what's going on. I mean, the court already told them to stop, and they just kept doing it. Now it told them again to stop. Now, people need to be arrested. But if that's what Josh Shapiro wants, if that's the hill he wants to die on, then go right ahead.
Well, look, as long as his career dies somewhere.
Yeah.
A hill, valley, a draw, an arroyo. I'm not concerned. I just want him to be defeated. He could have really made this a Sister Soldier moment. He could have said, "Bob, you need to respect the will of the voters, and you commissioners, if you don't want to go to jail, you stop doing things you know are illegal. And I know you know they're illegal because you said it on video, you morons." And I hope
it's such a hive mind. They're
Yes.
all always in lockstep. That's like get their marching orders, and I'm sure Josh Shapiro felt he had to do this because somebody that either gives him a lot of money or controls a large amount of people that will make his life difficult told him you better do this. And if he wants to set himself on fire, I'm not going to stop him. Go ahead.
Well, look, the Democrats have been trying to do an autopsy of this, and I think they've come to the conclusion that they haven't called us racist Nazis loud enough.
You know, I agree. I felt like if I'd only been called Hitler a couple more times or accused of being a Nazi, that I would have voted Kamala.
I was about 2 Mussolinis from going all Democrat.
You know, do better.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Do better, guys.
Exactly.
You know?
Hate us more. And it's hilarious that they can't be objective at all. And it's all, I mean, admittedly, it's hard for human beings to be objective when you've been so utterly humiliated and repudiated and rejected. I mean,
I think they can't. Right. I mean, You've got different kinds of people on the left. You've got the useful idiots. They're just dumb. But really, you can't. Where are the Democrats going to pivot to? You know, people say, "Oh, well, Kamala, she's a bad candidate." Okay, fine. Show me the good candidate that could sell the public on men competing against women in sports. Show me the candidate that's okay with men in dressing rooms with their 12-year-old. Tell me, you know, who are these people? Like, how is the messaging? You know, how do you fix the messaging on that so people buy it? I mean, there's nowhere to go for them. Their policies are abhorrent, and really, that's not only was Kamala, but she's dumb and lazy, but really, even if she weren't, she couldn't talk about her policies because they're repugnant.
Well, Liz Sheld, editor at American Greatness. Follow her at Star Chambermaid. Always great to talk to you. Have you at any time busted out with the Donald Trump dance? Because I was just doing it to a little safety dance by Men Without Hats because the 80s are back. It's going to be great.
Yeah, I dance on occasion with my wife, but no politician dances for me.
Well, you can dance if you want to. You can leave your friends behind. But if you don't dance, you're no friend of mine. So just putting that out there. David, let's go down the list of nominations because I got to say, a lot of them are pretty amazing. What do you think of Marco Rubio, Secretary of State?
Well, listen, I mean, Marco Rubio has been steeped in foreign policy for quite some time. It's an issue of interest for him, and so it's not the sort of pick that raises eyebrows, put it that way.
Which itself raises eyebrows. I was a little surprised not to see loyalist Rick Grinnell, who is a friend of the program and a personal friend of mine. I didn't see him picked. He seems much more the MAGA choice. Marco Rubio seems a little more establishment on foreign policy than we might have expected with Trump. What do you think was the story there?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's true that Marco Rubio is a little bit more of a traditional Republican when it comes to his foreign policy thinking, but his domestic views have shifted, and there's nothing Trump likes more than a convert. And, you know, when I interviewed Trump for my book some years back, I asked him about Marco Rubio, and he was going on and on about he defends him on the the Russia investigation, how he had defended him on that. And I will say, between if the word is loyalist or purist, whatever word you want to use, and a convert, Trump will probably pick the convert 9 times out of 10.
Interesting. And I think it's fair to say Marco Rubio is not going to have any trouble getting confirmed.
No trouble getting confirmed there.
Okay. Let's go to a little more controversial choice. Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense. What are you hearing about that?
Well, listen, I mean, I think when you look at the balance of Hegseth's military record, I would expect him to have an easier time getting confirmed than people might expect right out of the gate. However, it is possible, as it is always possible with these nominees, that the weight of information that comes out about, whether it's his personal life or his business life or things like that, could end up sinking the nomination before he gets a vote. There are some traditional Republicans, for instance, Mike Gallagher, former Wisconsin congressman, nobody would accuse of being a Trump-style Republican on foreign policy who has praised Hegseth. There are others that are concerned that he's never managed something like the Pentagon before and are sort of a little concerned about his foreign policy priorities. In other words, where he's put his military priorities versus not. And some people are just annoyed or not thrilled at the idea of plucking somebody for this kind of a job straight from television, even though he has a military background and he is a combat veteran. So I'm in a sort of wait and see mode with Pete Hegseth.
Well, let me throw this out there. Like Pete Hegseth, I was a field grade infantry officer. I wrote about it at Town Hall yesterday in my column. My thought is that Donald Trump appointed Pete Hegseth not to be a manager, not to be a green eye shades guy like a Robert McNamara, who was famously managerial and famously terrible, but as a leader, as a guy to go in, not focus on the details, but to apply boot to buttocks to get this military moving again, because the military is in terrible shape. And as Napoleon said, the moral to the physical is 10-1. The other thing I see is there have been some accusations out there in the regime media about Pete Hegseth's personal life, and they have been met with a shrug by Republicans. Republicans are just like, I just don't care. What do you think of those points?
Well, listen, I think that a good Secretary of Defense probably should be able to do a lot of those things, right? They should be able to lead, they should understand military strategy, and they should be able to manage, because you're dealing with weapon systems and a lot of moving parts. And look, we've got a really big military with a lot of responsibilities, and that's probably what you would hear from some Republicans. And they're going to have 53 votes. And I think the question is, can they lose? They can lose 3, but they can't lose 4. And then there's a question of recess appointments, but do you want to recess appoint somebody of that caliber?
I am joyous today. I am joyous because we have dodged a giant bullet in the form of Democrat control of the United States of America for an additional 4 years. And every morning I wake up and birds are singing, the sun is shining. I jump out of bed and I do the Trump dance. And I think there's nobody better to share my joy with than Byron York, the chief political correspondent of the Washington Examiner. You can follow him on the Twitters at Byron York. Byron, welcome to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Thank you, Kurt. Good to be here. You know, the Trump dance has kind of swept the nation. If you're a football player and score a touchdown now, you have to do the Trump dance.
I love it. Have you ever busted out the Trump dance?
I have to admit that I have not, and that even if I did, I wouldn't have any cameras around.
Yeah, my I was once dancing with my wife, and she said, "Stop joking around," and I said, "I'm not." So that's. But anybody could do the Trump dance, and that's the beauty of it. What do you think of, yesterday, Katie Phang, Phang, a regime media person, scolded, I think it was Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski, for normalizing Donald Trump. We can't normalize him. Do Democrats really think that the guy who beat them, the guy who may actually have a majority of the non-existent unicorn that is the national popular vote, is somehow abnormal? Do they actually feel that way, or?
Well, I think specifically on the Joe Scarborough, Mika Brzezinski thing, I think there were a lot of Democrats, and in this case, I would agree with them, wonder how you can spend months and years calling a man a fascist, talking about a Nazi-like rally that he staged in Madison Square Garden, and just calling him every name in the book, and then just days later decide that it's time to open a dialogue, go to Florida for an audience with him, and then decide that it's time to open a dialogue. So I think a lot of true believers on the left were upset, and said so openly after Joe and Mika announced this kind of rapprochement with Trump yesterday morning.
Well, Byron York of the Washington Examiner, the way Trump has been nominating folks, most of the picks, there are some exceptions, have been straight up establishment approved kind of, for lack of a better word, normal Republican picks. I mean, Marco Rubio at Secretary of State, does it get more normal Republican than that?
No, and as a matter of fact, if you remember back to 2016, first of all, Trump got a much slower start.
Mm-hmm.
If you look back, he announced his very first cabinet pick on November 18th, which was yesterday. So, I mean, think how much Trump has done now. That he literally had made no announcement up until now in 2016. So he's going much, much faster. And some of these are entirely establishment picks. But obviously, Matt Gaetz is not an establishment pick. Tulsi Gabbard is not an establishment pick. Pete Hegseth is not an establishment pick. So clearly he's thinking outside the box on some of this stuff, and it has driven a lot of the usual suspects nuts.
I think with Pete Hegseth, who I wrote about in Town Hall yesterday, he's an air field grade infantry officer like myself, and there are certain capabilities that we had before the military turned into the woke cesspool of failure that it is right now. That provide a skill set that could be very useful at the Pentagon. And I'm tuned into veteran circles. The Tulsi Gabbard and Pete Hegseth nominations have gotten a lot of vet support, which I think will help when he goes to the Senate when they both go to the Senate for confirmation. Matt Gaetz. What are your thoughts on the Matt Gaetz pick? I got to tell you, did not see it. I'm a trial lawyer. Did not see it coming.
Well, I would agree with you on the Hegseth nomination, and I've written something similar to that. I think there's clearly a case for shaking up the military, and to have an outsider do it who had significant military experience himself. This guy's not some consultant from McKinsey coming in and doing it. He's got real experience. So I agree with you on that. On the Gaetz thing, I have publicly said this is a terrible nomination, and I think it is. And I don't know if Donald Trump can twist enough arms to get it through the Senate, but I do think there is this report that's been done by the House Ethics Committee. The Speaker of the House does not want it to be released publicly, but I do not see how, in the context of a Senate confirmation hearing, which the Senate Judiciary Committee is going to hold, I do not see how the House can withhold a background report on the nominee for Attorney General from the Senate Judiciary Committee. Now, once that happens, of course, it's all going to get public. I do believe it's going to be public. But I don't know what's in it. And I said from the beginning, I don't know what's in this report. I don't know what it says. On the other hand, I do know that Matt Gaetz made common cause with 210 Democrats in the House of Representatives to oust the Republican Speaker of the House. And I found it incredible at the time. I still find it incredible. And, trying to bring down the Republican majority in the House of Representatives is something that a lot of Republicans don't forget.
Well, look, Byron York, there are a lot of personal charges against Matt Gaetz, and there are some intriguing and solid criticisms of the alleged investigation findings that particularly in the Federalist that raise some questions about whether they are true or not. Let's put those completely aside, even though those will probably take a prominent place should confirmation hearing go forward, because Donald Trump allegedly told the New York Times yesterday, or was reported in the New York Times, that he is not positive that this confirmation is actually going to go forward. I can think of about 10 Republicans who I don't believe will ever vote for Matt Gaetz, and I think there's a institutional incentive on the part of the Senate, which does have an advise and consent responsibility under the Constitution. I can think of 10 senators who I cannot imagine will ever vote for Matt Gaetz.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people would find this to be kind of a useless distraction because remember, before the Gaetz nomination, there were reports that a lot of political appointees and career people in the Justice Department were terrified that Donald Trump had just been elected president. And I thought that's a good thing.
Absolutely.
They need shaking up in the Department of Justice. They clearly spent 4 years trying to resist and bring down the President of the United States, and they can't do that again. So I thought that was a good thing. And then Trump nominates Matt Gaetz, who's just this whole basket of distractions, and is not a good person to carry out this shakeup at the Department of Justice. So anyway, it's the unfortunate thing about the Gaetz thing, and as I said, I think it's a terrible pick. The unfortunate thing about it is the Department of Justice does need a big shakeup, and there are people that Trump could appoint, like John Ratcliffe, to carry it out.
Well, Byron York of the Washington Examiner, we only have about 30 seconds left. Overall, how do you think this transition is going, particularly in comparison to his previous one?
Yeah, I think it's going better than this previous one, and I think it's going reasonably well. As a matter of fact, he has gotten a lot of nominations out the door. He has a lot more to go. By the way, but there's a lot of people to appoint in the executive branch, and this time he does understand. I think in 2016 he thought, well, you just appoint the secretary of something, and then that cabinet department is kind of under your control. Well, now he realizes you have to go a lot deeper than that to try to actually enact your policy agenda through the executive.
Well, you certainly do. As you know, the great Dennis Prager has had a terrible accident. He is in the hospital. There was a statement yesterday. He has neck injuries. His recovery is advancing and progressing, but it's going to be a long recovery. And I ask you for your prayers and support for this great guy. I've always liked Dennis Prager. And the reason I was playing the Sex Pistols now is in honor of Dennis Prager, because the one time I guest hosted for Dennis Prager, I had them play the Sex Pistols as bumper music. And I have a feeling that's why I was never asked to guest host for Dennis Prager again. But I love the guy. He is a legend. He is an institution. Pray for his swift recovery from a very, very serious injury. And I know he and his whole family and everybody around here at Salem appreciate your support. Let's talk about the Heritage Foundation and Dawn's Early Light. Look, the American people spoke loudly on November 5th. And "We want our country back" was the rallying cry. The election was a rebuke of a corrupt and incompetent elite uprooting our way of life, with so-called conservatives just as guilty as their progressive counterparts. In his important new book, Dawn's Early Light, Heritage Foundation President Dr. Kevin Roberts announces the arrival of a new conservative movement. His message is simple: global elites, your time is up. His book charts a path for the American people to take back our country, and with a renewed sense of clarity and purpose. Chapter by chapter, Dawn's Early Light identifies institutions conservatives need to build, others we need to take back, and others are too corrupt to save. Ivy League colleges, New York Times, FBI, NIH, Department of Education, BlackRock, and more. Dawn's Early Light is a blueprint for how we, the people, can drain the swamp and take our country back, and then keep it. I urge everyone listening to get a copy of this important book. Go to Amazon or wherever you get your books and buy Dawn's Early Light right now. You know who's been a hero? Scott Jennings on CNN. He's clever, he's hilarious, and he's not intimidated, being the one voice of sanity with like 5 lunatics on the table around him. Let's listen to Scott Jennings on CNN with John Berman throwing down some truth bombs. Cut number 2, please.
It's not about ratings.
I'm amazed. I did not expect Hitler to get so many meeting requests. First from Joe Biden, now from Mika and Joe. It's amazing that literal Hitler is getting all these meeting requests. And what it tells me, Professor, is that all the rhetoric that came from the left, from the Democrats, from the White House, from Kamala Harris and everyone else before the election, all of the rhetoric, the fascism, the Hitler, the Nazi rally at it was all a bunch of BS. They didn't mean any of it. And if I were in the Democrat sort of rabble's shoes, I would be looking at all my leaders and going, did you just BS me for an entire 6 weeks before the election?
There is nothing these people need more than to do the one thing that they can't possibly do, which is kind of an autopsy of their utter and humiliating defeat in the recent election. I think the problem is that progressivism is not a political ideology. They don't treat it as if it's a set of political beliefs in the same way that we do. They take that space that normal people fill up with faith, family, and the flag, and they fill it up with what comic Norm Macdonald memorably called commie gobbledygook. All this nonsense. Trump's a fascist. You know, the world is on fire from climate change. America is a racist country. It's not a set of objective conclusions, but rather a set of, received sacraments. They can't do the autopsy they need. They can't go back and say, maybe we were wrong about some of these things. And when they try, like Seth Moulton tried about girls and boys sports, they go nuts. They go nuts the same way that religious fanatics go nuts about heretics. Because you are a heretic if you tell the truth to the Democrats. I am very pleased to bring to you a veteran of the United States Navy. By the way, all Schlichters except me are Navy veterans. And the new Senator-elect from Indiana, Jim Banks. Welcome, Senator-elect Banks.
Wow, what an introduction. I don't know what to say. Thank you very much, Kurt.
Well,
good to be with you.
Good to be with you. Senator-elect, I am so pleased that you are going to the United States Senate. I've gotten to know you over the last couple of years. You've been you've joined me as a guest on the Hugh Hewitt program when I've guest hosted many times. We've also talked offline, and I'm just so thrilled that you're going to be serving our country in this new capacity as a senator from the great state of Indiana. I think everybody probably, talking about transition and everything. I think there's some more interesting to talk about. How does one go about being a senator-elect? What's it like for you? What are you experiencing right now?
Well, I'm still a congressman, so we have the lame duck, and we have all the debates right now over the continuing resolution. Hopefully, we get the NDAA, the major defense bill passed, and the lame duck. There's some talk of a farm bill. I'm skeptical that will happen this year. Probably pushed into the new Congress. And what's important about the lame duck to remember, Kurt, is that we have the perfect scenario. Donald Trump back in the White House, a Republican majority in the House, and a Republican majority in the Senate. So anything that passes today with Chuck Schumer's Senate and Joe Biden in the White House is going to be much weaker than something that we can pass next year. So a CR into the new year, the NDAA is likely to pass, but anything like a farm bill will be filled with woke riders and woke policies that if we hold it off till next year, it'll be a lot better. So, but to answer your question, I'm still focused on that. We had our new senator orientation last week. There are 12 new senators, 6 Republicans, 6 Democrats coming into the new Congress, and we got together to go through the crash course on a lot of the technical parts of being a senator. But I admit I have a lot to learn. I'm meeting with my new colleagues, and we elected new leadership last week. Really proud of my friend Tom Cotton for being elected the number 3 spot. By the way, I know a friend of this show. New Republican leadership, a new Republican Senate, a new Republican Party to back up Donald Trump over the next 4 years with him in the White House. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, Senator-elect, do you simply take your congressional staff and walk across Capitol Hill to your new office? Is that how it goes, or do you start bringing in new people?
Well, a little bit of both. I mean, my entire House staff is going with me, and I have a top-notch staff that's been with me for a long time. I've been in the House for 8 years. They kicked us out of our House office last Friday, but they gave us temporary office space in the Russell Senate office building in the basement. So
In
we're
the
sort of
basement.
spreading out there, and we're interviewing people to come and, my staff will grow by probably at least 3 times. One thing, though, that when you're a senator-elect or a congressman-elect, you don't know what your committee assignments will be until the new year. So we're studying that and making a case. I've been on the House Armed Services Committee for 8 years. I chair the Military Personnel Subcommittee. I've been at the tip of the spear for fighting back against wokeism in the military. I want that to be my mission and focus when I get to the Senate. So I'm asking for a seat on the Senate Armed Services Committee and making my case for that. That over the next several weeks, a lot of my time will be focused on preparing to hit the ground running on January 3rd when I get sworn into the Senate.
Senator-elect Banks, what do you think of Donald Trump's nomination for Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth?
I think he's of all of the nominations, he made many great ones. I couldn't be more excited about Pete. I mean, Pete understands what's at stake. He's been a victim of wokeism in the military. He's written the book on what to do about it. So I'm excited about it. I fully support Pete's nomination and do everything I can to make sure that happens. And one of my favorite picks so far. So he's the type of fighter that we need in a role like that to clean up the mess at the Pentagon that's been left behind by the players over the last 4 years, Milley and Austin and the whole Biden administration. What they've done to weaken the military, what they've done to poison and politicize the military with their woke ideological causes, it's going to take a lot of work to clean it up. And Pete Hegseth is that type of reformer that I think can make it happen. But he's going to need backup in the Senate, and I'm going to be there to help him every step of the way.
Well, Senator Banks, it's obvious that your personal military experience has allowed you to identify what is the key problem with the Pentagon. And there are problems with personnel, with procurement, with strategy. But everything wrong with the Pentagon stems from the failure of the warrior culture that should be in effect. Instead, we have a bureaucrat culture. And I think instead of getting a technician manager like a Robert McNamara, who was a disaster on his own, getting in a leader who refuses to allow himself to be bogged down by bureaucratic details and goes out and sets a standard and gets rid of things like the wokeism, which is an utter disaster. I think that's key. How are you going to be able to support him on armed services should you be appointed there?
Well, I'm going to help make the case to my colleagues that Pete Hegseth is exactly the type of change agent that we need at a time like this at the Pentagon. And I think by and large, the Republicans in the Senate agree with that. I can't speak for them, and I'm not a senator yet, but all of the ones that I've talked to see the importance of putting someone in this role that isn't already bankrupted by the culture at the Pentagon. So I'm excited about Pete. I'm excited about a lot of these picks that President Trump has made. There's obviously a pattern here of nominating reformers and change agents to shake up all of these agencies and departments, and Pete Hegseth to me is the exact type of reform-minded person that we need at the Pentagon more than ever to shake it up there and change the way things are done.
Well, Senator-elect Banks, you're going to be part of the Senate's confirmation process, and the Constitution has a responsibility for the Senate to advise and consent. And a lot of my conservative friends have said, they should just, agree with everything Trump says, which I certainly think they should bend over backwards to try and accommodate Trump getting the team he wants. But I think there is a constitutional duty for you as senators to go in and actually evaluate these candidates and then to advise and consent upon them. What's the process you're going to use when looking at Donald Trump's picks to do that constitutional duty?
Yeah, I agree with you. We have a 53-seat Republican majority, and when John Thune was elected the majority last majority leader last week, he promised and vowed to all of the Republicans in the majority that we're gonna move quickly, and I think that's the important part of it. The important part of it isn't to back off of our constitutional duty, but the important part of it is to move swiftly, because President Trump needs each of these nominees seated in their position to enact the America First agenda that he promised the American people that he has a mandate to fulfill. So let's act fast, but let's do our job. And I think Republicans are up for that. The Republican majority in the Senate is ready for that. John Thune and John Barrasso and Tom Cotton, our top three leaders, are figuring out how to make this happen as fast as we can. And that's one reason why I go back to that first question you asked me about what's it like to be a senator-elect. That's why getting these committee assignments in place, getting the committees populated. So when I take that oath of office and dump the elect title and become Indiana's next United States senator, I immediately go to the Armed Services Committee, and we immediately have confirmation hearings and confirm Pete Hegseth. That's the important part of it.
Senator-elect Banks, you're interacting with your Democrat colleagues in the House right now, and perhaps with some of your future colleagues in the Senate right now who are Democrats for whatever reason. How are they feeling right now? Are they sad? Because I want them to be sad.
You can see it in their eyes. I mean, there is something different here than what I've seen before. I mean, you've seen them you saw them invigorated and in Trump's first midterm. When Trump won the first time, it was a shock to the system. But then they played all the games that they did, and then you had the midterms, and they won the House majority back. And this time, though, you see a good example. Seth Moulton, moderate Democrat in Boston, who's come out and saying the quiet part out loud about his party, that they're not the Democrat Party is nuts, and his staff's resigned. He's had protests, Democrats protesting his office. But you've seen a few Democrats come out and say it, that they can't win elections if they continue to advocate for boys playing in girls sports and for a lot of the wacky positions that the Democrats have taken. This is, I've told you before, my dad was a union Democrat for most of his life. This isn't my dad's Democrat Party. This is a wacky Democrat Party that can't win.
Guest host Kurt Schlichter. And, of course, that's Joy Division with Love Will Tear Us Apart. And I had, some strained analogy about how the Democrats are tearing themselves apart as an excuse to play that song, because that's one of the greatest new wave songs ever. I mean, it's just an incredible song. And I think Dwayne agrees with me. Don't you agree?
It's certainly the best that Joy Division offers.
Joy Division has a number of good songs, but that is far and away the best.
That's the best song they
that is a top 10 Kurt Schlichter song.
Okay.
That is within my top 10.
Okay.
There are several replacement songs in there, some Clash.
Yeah. Hoodoo Gurus?
I don't know if I have them in my top 10, but they're certainly in the top 50. I love the Hoodoo Guru, but there's a lot of great songs out there.
Okay.
In any case,
yes.
Back to the very strained analogy, and I wanted to take this segment to talk with you because I listen to Dwayne's World all the time.
Oh, well, thank you.
I'm always wanting to add input.
Every once in a while, I have asked you to be part of this.
You asked me to be on the other day. And I said yes, and my wife said, you can't do it. We have a family issue that has to be taken care of. And I said, change of plan.
Yes.
And fortunately, nobody's injured. Nobody's dead. It was just something that had to be dealt with.
Well, but I traded up. I had Jerry Hendricks on.
Oh, Jerry Hendricks is in the Navy, but he's okay. I was talking to Jerry. He's listening right now, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure he is.
Probably going, when are you going to talk about ships?
Yes, that's kind of what we talked about.
Ahoy.
Yes.
Ahoy. The Democrats.
Yes.
I wrote a town hall column saying don't help them by telling them how they're wrong about analyzing this election, but they're certainly not going to be listening to me guest host.
Yeah, and they're not going to take your advice anyway.
They're not going to take it anyway.
So you can say what ails them, and they're not going to listen.
They're not going to listen. But I find it hard to understand people who can't be objective about objective feedback. People going, yeah, I don't particularly want a dude in my daughter's locker room.
Right.
And they can't, and they think that this is like, they don't get it. They're like, what? Are you some kind of transphobe?
In between segments here, I've been writing a piece that's going to show up in Hot Air because you do your thing for Town Hall. I write for Hot Air, which are sister. They're all part of the Salem world. We're all cousins here.
It's the West Virginia of conservatism.
Yeah. Oh, okay, fine. That's.
Oh boy. By the way, love Lady Dog.
Yes.
That's the new Senator-elect Justice's dog, Lady Dog.
Baby Dog.
Baby Dog.
Baby Dog.
I love Baby Dog.
Baby Dog, yes.
That's 10 points for me.
Except Baby Dog does not have floor privileges yet. We're working on that. Anyway, my column is, that's going to be today, is the Democratic River of Denial starts in D.C. and flows west and dumps into the San Francisco Bay. And I bring,
that's clever.
And I bring,
it's funny because it's true.
And I bring four examples. One, Politico today talked about, or yesterday afternoon, wrote a headline about Sean Duffy going to transportation, and they branded him as a reality TV star.
Well, look, he did star in Road Rules, which gives him more transportation experience than Pete Buttigieg.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Because he was literally on a road.
And he has 9 kids, which is its own transportation problem.
That's a logistical nightmare right there.
Yes, but
so I'm already convinced.
But Politico is ignoring the fact that he was a 4-term congressman, served 9 years in the House, chaired the House Government and Oversight and Investigation Committee, was on Financial Services. Had a financial and business show on Fox that he co-hosted with Elizabeth McDonald, and he's also was a district attorney for Ashland County, Wisconsin, in the mix too. But no, he's a reality TV star, so they're a little delusional.
Why do you do that? Well, what do you gain if you're Politico from doing that?
I don't know.
Is it like, take that, Sean Duffy? Your fertility.
If that's literally the best oppo they have on Sean Duffy, he's an easy confirmation.
But I mean, they've got to know that's
silly.
A silly
it's
headline.
Just silly.
What do they gain from it other than again, take that?
Again, I think they're just delusional. I think it's just delusion.
You've
got Butler County supervisors, and you've got Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, saying, "Oh well, yes, technically we need to abide by the court's order, but these poor supervisors, they were just confused." No, they weren't confused. They were intentionally breaking the law.
He should have sister soldiered that.
Absolutely, he should have.
He should have sister soldiered. And I think it was a giant mistake of Kamala Harris not to pick him, because I thought he was the guy, and I think Hugh thinks he's the Democrat guy.
Absolutely.
And I just think he's been all thumbs in the last few decisions
he has. Arizona, Katie Hobbs is saying she's not going to cooperate with deporting illegals. Well, fortunately, she's not in charge of U.S. immigration law. Then you go out to the San Francisco Bay, where the River of Denial ends, which is where Kamala Harris is going to reside in exile for a couple of years. A new poll came out this morning. She is the front runner for the 28 nomination. 41%. It's the greatest thing in the world.
Oh, the joy is real.
The joy is real.
I am super excited to bring to you a close personal friend who has been in my house and has experienced my reverse sear ribeyes, which he mistakenly thought were New York's, but they were ribeyes, and I will never let him forget that. His name is Jim Hansen. He's president of World Strat, and you can follow him at Jim Hansen DC. Jim, welcome to the Hugh Hewitt radio program.
Hey, good to be with you, buddy. Steakless this morning, but still good.
Oh, well, we can fix that. You got to get back to my house. After the house in Los Angeles flooded, we rebuilt the kitchen. It's not to be confused with the house in Houston, which also flooded from a busted pipe, and we're in the process of rebuilding the kitchen. So, yay, I think. So
no, that's no fun.
That is no fun at all. But, it doesn't matter to me. I'm joyous. I've got the joy and the vibe. I'm feeling brat because 2 weeks ago we won. How are you feeling?
Dude, we're the cool kids. I love this. I love the fact that right now, all of the celebrities and all of the garbage that Kamala paid for to try and push her dead weight across a finish line she couldn't even get past the starting line of the race of, is now focused on us. And everybody's looking and saying, okay, who's the counterculture? Who's punk rock? Who's counter-revolutionary? Who's cool? It's us. And it's Trump. And it's the team he's surrounding himself with, which is a bunch of 40 to 50-year-olds who are going to change things here in the swamp where I live.
We're Bluto, they're Niedermeyer.
There you go.
There's a deep cut. All the kids today are going, the what now? I don't understand. Just go watch Animal House. It'll put hair on your chest. And not in like a weird gender thing way. Jim, one of the things that you do, because you are retired Army Special Forces, you have been doing this stuff for a long time. You work a lot in information operations. What do you think of the messaging of the Trump dance and the just the Trump vibe?
I think they've managed to flip the table. Because, think about one thing. Not long ago, we had Colin Kaepernick and all the rest of those clowns kneeling on the sidelines of the NFL to protest America as a white supremacist country. Now, those same players, those same members of the NFL are celebrating Donald Trump, who's going to go back and fix the stuff. Yeah, of all races. That's just it. Yep.
What this reminds me of is, like, in high school, most of the time you just let the nerds go do their student government election, and some nerd gets elected president. No one cares. But then the nerds do something, and then the normal kids go, wait a minute, we got to put a stop to this. I think that's kind of what happened. And we built a coalition, the jocks and the geeks and the smoking kids, the burnouts, and it's all, they're all rebelling against the theater kids who were trying to turn, our high school into, a politically correct internment camp.
And the thing is, it's not a hateful thing. That's what the left tried and failed, to brand this whole movement as a collection of angry white haters who are mad because the brown people and the freakish, queer agenda people are taking charge. Well, guess what? So did the rest of the normals, whose kids were now being exposed, to gyrating drag queens and to a bunch of ideology that they had not signed on for. What they want is they want prosperity, they want security, and they want everybody to just leave everybody else alone. And that's what Trump's got. And it's a happy, upbeat, positive thing. And I think that's why we're winning.
And it's really a coalition we haven't seen before. Trump got record numbers of Latinos, record numbers of black men. I would assume that he got a surprising number of gay men who are not
the
taking
normal gays.
The normal gays. And the thing that's interesting to me is, the Trump theme song, YMCA, is kind of a gay anthem. I mean, there's a little going on there, it's a less well-kept secret than, well, I'm not even going to go down that road. But you look at the other side, and you look at Kamala Harris, and who wants to be ruled over by the head of the HR department for the next 4 years?
Exactly.
That's her.
Yeah, and like you said, the crazed theater kid like Tim Waltz, their whole coalition is incoherent. They decided that the people who were marginalized, and let's be fair, they were marginalized for a good long time, a while ago, decades ago. Now you're in a situation where Trump's playing gay anthems, where anybody who wants to live well, to eat well, to not be poisoned by, vaccines that weren't tested. There's an entire array of things that they were going to push on us using state power to, force us to obey. And the rest of the country looked at that and said, but that's not what we asked for. What we want you to do is stay out of our way while we're raising our families, while we're working hard, keep us safe, but don't entangle us in forever wars. Make sure the criminals are locked up instead of let loose on the streets. And don't tell my kids that they can be a non-binary forest elf if that's what they feel like. That's what won.
I think we're seeing what would have happened here over in England, where Keir Starmer with about 30% of 30-something% of the vote, and I write about this in Town Hall on Thursday, this coming Thursday, has really turned Great Britain into kind of a little fascist state where there are it's mind-boggling. You can be put in jail for years, longer than perverts, thieves, junkies, and murderers. You can be put in jail in Britain for writing things. Just let that go. And the Kamala Harris people wanted to do that. That's a good thing in their mind, that you can go to jail for saying something the government doesn't like. And I feel like we dodged a bullet.
100%. You look at the UK, and Orwell now is rolling in his grave going, dang, I didn't think you guys would take it this far, because they literally now have set the model for what not to do. They're the canary in the coal mine. Now, they can't do it. It's much more difficult to do it here because we still do have the Bill of Rights with the First Amendment and then the Second Amendment to make sure they know we're serious about saying what we want. But they tried, and they want to do it almost through force of shame and the power of canceling people who don't agree with them.
And that's completely
again,
over.
Normal said no.
Look, nobody's buying the regime media anymore. I mean, look at what they're trying to do with Pete Hegseth, right? The regime media is putting out, well, here's an allegation, and no one on the right cares. We're like, I don't care what CBS says. I don't care what the New York Times says. Doesn't matter. You don't enter into my decision-making process. They totally squandered their credibility.
For America.
Oh, yeah.
No, it's a net gain for America because, as you said, they went ahead and proved. Look at during the campaign, 60 Minutes interviews Kamala and then puts out her answer. The world laughs. So they go back and edit it to try and make her more coherent, fail at that, but point out that they're actually doing that. And now people have to accept that what they're seeing in the regime media is simply palace scribes pushing the Democrat and woke ideology, and that cannot be trusted. So fortunately, I mean, let's be fair. Elon saved the day by buying X, by dumping his $44 billion into having one place where free speech is the norm and where all of this can be reality checked. And it made a massive difference in the election.
And they know it. That's why they hate Elon Musk. Joss Marshall of Talking Points memo, he still exists for some reason, was out there saying, Elon Trump is the greatest threat to free speech in America. Wait, what? Do these people even hear themselves? Or do they just get a free pass on objective reality when they're addressing their fellow leftist lunatics?
Oh, they have divorced themselves from reality and accepted their narrative, despite all the evidence showing that their narrative is A, false, and B, leads to horrific consequences for the people they're claiming to help. The reason that blacks and Hispanics voted in record numbers for Trump is because Democrats ruined the cities where a lot of them live and took away the prosperity that a lot of them humped their way from Central and South America across Mexico to get here and try to take part of. So all of those things you cannot change grocery prices, gas prices, and other things.
It's all sweet, Dwayne. It's all sweet.
It's a remarkable couple of weeks. It really is.
Now, doing the analogy from the song title thing and straining it, you can't eat sweets the way you used to.
Not the way I used to. I still indulge. But that's the thing about the whole maintenance thing when you do this weight loss program.
Well, what weight loss program is it?
MyPhDweightloss.com.
And what's the number?
The number is 864-644-1900.
Now, I come in here occasionally to guest host, and you were larger before. You look great.
Thank you.
You are energetic, and you're really because we communicate outside of
yes, we do.
You're happier.
I am a happier person. It's fun to be able to be a little bit more mobile than I was.
Well, you bike all the time.
I bike all the time.
You coach sports ball. You throw touchdowns or something in the Little League.
Yes, that's exactly what I do. Yes,
I'm unaware of
any
I
of
get you
that,
make goals.
Right, correct.
But PhDs helped you.
Absolutely. And once you lose the weight that you need to lose and you shift to a maintenance program, you learn how many carbs you can really have in a day and not gain it all back. Now, you can spend those carbs on anything you want. If you want to spend it on candy, you can spend it on candy. It's limited, but you can spend it there, or you can spend it on bread, or you can spend it on something else. But basically, you still learn how to maintain with mostly a protein-based diet, but then you get a little bit of carbs to offset it, and you use that however you want to use it.
Well, I think a lot of people are concerned, Dwayne, that it becomes a thing where your whole life is centered around what am I going to eat when. Is that how it works?
The actual weight loss part is pretty structured because if you eat at set times every day, you don't get hungry. And so you eat a little bit more times during the day. Once you have hit the goal that you're at, then you shift into a maintenance program. And it's just a mindset. It's just learning that what foods trigger bad behaviors on you and what you can do and what you can't do. And once you learn that, it's pretty easy to maintain.
So you're not obsessing about food when you're on PhD.
Of course not. Of course not.
Weight loss. Okay. Yeah, well, great. Now, what's that phone number again?
864-644-1900.
And you should tell them that you heard about on the Hugh Hewitt show.
By me.
By you.
Yes.
We want them to know that you are an advocate.
I get full credit and attribution. Yes.
You get full credit and attribution. Well, I think that's great. Speaking of credit and attribution, who do you think was most at fault for the Democrats' defeat? It's humiliating, face in the mud
there's
debacle.
There's so many contenders.
Well, who's the one who is the worst of the worst? Because there's some people saying it's Joe Biden. Of course, some are saying it's Kamala.
Nope.
Some are saying it's Tim Walz.
Nope.
Who do you think?
Nancy Pelosi.
Oh, I thought you were she's running. She has put in her candidacy again.
She wants another term at 82 years old.
At 82 years old.
Yeah. No, I think you can lay that at the feet of Nancy Pelosi.
Think she'll take responsibility for it?
Of course not.
Of course not. It's somebody else's fault.
Absolutely.
I think defeat has many fathers in this case, or mothers. I don't want to misgender anybody.
Yes, or mothers that identify as fathers,
or whatever. Yeah. Joe and Jill Biden, I think, played a part. Kamala played a huge part just by being. She's just ridiculous.
Did you see the Veterans Day gig where Jill Biden was sitting there and Kamala Harris showed up in the balcony, and Jill Biden knew she was there. Kamala reached over to shake somebody's hand, and Jill had a straight look on her, and she didn't even give her the time of day.
I'm an infantry officer, so I don't have a lot of emotional intelligence, but boy, I saw that. I was like, somebody hates somebody.
Yeah, there's
somebody hates somebody.
There's not a lot of joy there.
Not a lot of joy. There was a joy division.
Any fantasy that Joe Biden was going to leave early to let her be the first female president for a month, that ain't happening.
That's not in the cards. Congressman Darrell Issa, the great state of California, is joining us. Congressman Issa, welcome to the Hugh Hewitt radio program.
Well, thanks for having me on, and thanks for calling it a great state rather than a state of trauma, as California has become. But, we love the state. We question our government.
Boy, you've got that right. Congressman Issa, tell the listeners a little about your district, because it's a interesting district, a kind of an international district, if you will.
It really is. I have 80 miles of the Mexican border, the busiest land port in the world, a massive amount of daily legal immigration, meaning people crossing our border legally with their papers and so on, many of them American citizens, a lot with visas. And then we also are the number one zone along the U.S.-Mexican border for illegal immigration, both getaways and people who show up with that sort of a credible fear lie that they've been told to say.
Well, Congressman Issa, with your with having a border district and also your great service to America in the United States Army, you've really got a lot of foreign policy experience. I have heard rumors that you may be in line to be the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee in the next Congress.
I am, and I've been getting a lot of support. It's one of those committees that ebbs and flows on how it's perceived as important. But with President Trump and likely Senator Rubio coming in to change foreign policy to something we can all be proud of and be effective, it's a very exciting time. You can go to every continent except Antarctica, and you're going to find real problems that need to be addressed. And I'm looking forward to, if I'm chosen, to leading a great team of members of Congress on that job of both participating and educating, because a lot of what we do is make sure that members who aren't on the Foreign Affairs Committee have access to real information to make the important decisions we're going to make, particularly during these next 2 years of President Trump.
Congressman Issa, why do you think you're the best candidate to be the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee in the next Congress?
Well, part of it is who I am is who I've been. For 6 years, I led the Oversight Committee. When I came to it, I was actually recruited by Congressman Tom Davis because nobody really wanted it. They were assigning members to the committee. And this is one of the most important committees of Congress, without a doubt, but it wasn't recognized that way. And I turned it around, recruited people like Craig Gowdy, Jim Jordan, Jason Chaffetz, Patrick McHenry, Virginia Fox, and brought people who had fire in their belly to actually do real investigations, to hold government accountable. And by the time I left it, they were always calling it, an A committee, a very powerful committee. But it was really the people that I recruited and the way we serviced their ability to do investigations like Fast and Furious, Benghazi, to go after the IRS, going after conservatives, those sort of things. And when we look at the lowest point in Washington, D.C., it happens to be Foggy Bottom, where the State Department is.
It all flows downhill.
It does, and it's truly a swamp. As a matter of fact, there's a river that's covered up right there that you can see where it actually was, a swamp with little tributaries. But it's both figuratively and literally the swamp. And incoming Secretary Rubio and President Trump, they're going to have alligators biting at their ass once again, the way Pompeo did. And without a House and a Senate, without us doing our job to have their backs and to make the reforms, we're not going to compete the way we should. And I'll just give you one example, and it's one that I have a passion for because I left Congress and worked for President Trump for 2 years. He named me to the Trade Development Agency, and it's part of the mechanism that's supposed to try to promote American technologies and infrastructure and so on to the rest of the world. But China is kicking our butts in that with their Belt and Road, not because they have a better product, but because they have a coordinated process. And President Trump in his first term began the process of bringing together all those agencies to work in a business-like fashion. My passion is going to be to finish that job under the Trump administration and make us what we should be, which is the world leader again in everything from ports to highways to airports, but also to bring fairness to our ability to sell the best products in the world around the world, rather than the unfair competition we see ourselves facing with China.
Well, Congressman Darrell Issa, I know there's some competition for the foreign affairs slot. And frankly, at least one of the leading competitors seems to be kind of a never Trumper. Does it make sense to put somebody who's consistently opposed the president in charge of this committee that really should be supporting President Trump's foreign policy initiatives?
Well, I don't think it is, and I do think that leadership is going to look heavily on what we call the steering committee, which is a selection committee, at are you a reliable supporter of the president? Will you help him execute this modernization of foreign policy, or will you be with him sometimes and not when it's inconvenient to whatever the issue of the day is?
Well, Congressman Issa, one of you've had a lot of achievements both as a civilian in building an enormous business, as a legislator, as someone who's been in the executive branch. But frankly, the thing that impresses me most about you is that you were an Army tanker, and I wanted to get your thoughts on Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense. My thought is we can use a combat arms guy to get in there and lead the Pentagon and get the Army back to what you and I experienced when we were soldiers. What do you think?
Well, you're exactly right. You know, what people forget, first of all, I want to point out that not only is Pete a decorated combat veteran, but he also is 1 year older than Don Rumsfeld was when he became Secretary of Defense the first time. So, you know, people who say, well, you know, he hasn't been around for 100 years. Well, he's been around longer than a lot of people who have had the job, but also he's had the experience, as much experience as you could have at 44 years old. And by the way, the energy to take one of the, you know, there's 3 million people, more than half of them civilians, who are part of the Department of Defense, and it is not delivering a world-class product. It's costing a lot of money with a lot. I mean, the fact that it has more than half of the people that do not go in harm's way, you know, that's not a ratio that anyone would want to have. And so when somebody who's been shot at is pretty aware that you only want the amount of logistical support and people behind you that is necessary for you to have the maximum amount of people there with you. And so those kind of reforms and a lot more are going to be important. And of course, after we've made our priorities the woke activities rather than lethality and effectiveness, Pete's going to be a welcome change.
Well, I think we're all looking forward to it, Congressman Issa. Let me ask you, you've been in Congress a long time. You've seen, Republicans win, Democrats win. What's the, for lack of a better word, I'll use Kamala Harris's, what's the vibe on Capitol Hill? How are the Democrats feeling today, and how are your Republican colleagues feeling?
Well, we're feeling good. Remember that we haven't, on the House side, we haven't even gotten the last of our people through the question of are they coming back or not. Typical of California, there's still races that they're counting and perhaps looking for the votes the Democrats need. Having said that, we're very optimistic. We know that the president has a mandate. We know that even if our majority turns out to be one vote, that we still can come together and do the job under his leadership.
On a scale of 9 to 10, how great was I today?
You climbed up to a 9.4 with this bumper alone.
Nice. I always have the best bumper music.
You have the best bumper music this segment.
Are you telling me the Psychedelic Furs, the Sex Pistols, the Village People?
Hey,
these aren't great
I'm telling
choices?
You, if you haven't discovered Goose yet, if you haven't,
I heard the Goose song, and I will give it another shot.
I'm telling you, there is nothing wrong in the world that a 30-minute jam song can't fix.
30-minute jam song.
Oh yeah.
That's
they're famous for those.
I'm not sure the K-Dog can be down with that, as the hip kids say. Wow, that's
they're
that's
famous.
A lot.
They're famous for doing long jams. It's fun.
Wow. Okay, but what do you think of the guests?
That's the one thing, by the way. That band. That's the one thing that Stephen Hayes and I agree on. He's a big Goose fan too. Yes,
he's a never Trumpy guy.
It's a unifying band.
I think he's like from the Bulwark or something.
Yes, it's a unifying band.
I don't want to be unified with those people.
Hey,
I don't want anything to do with them.
Whatever.
Ahoy.
Okay.
So, guests. I
Yes.
thought we had a pretty good lineup today.
Yes, you had a great stable of guests and Liz Sheld.
Oh, come on.
I'm
Liz
kidding.
is amazing.
I'm kidding.
She's so angry and bitter
Yes.
that she provides this, this caustic take. It's not Hugh's style, but I have a different style. You know what's great is Hugh never tells me what to do. He's like, Kurt, you want to do it on the 19th? Sure. Bye. I'm out of here. He's not listening.
No.
He doesn't care as long as I don't, get him an FCC fine.
Yeah, he's on vacation, which means he's on a porch somewhere reading a book.
Which, sounds like a pretty good vacation to me.
Yeah.
But he doesn't tell me what to. I actually book most of my own guests, which makes Danielle, who's one of the producers, very happy. Because I'll go, well, I got so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so. And she's like, oh, okay. I don't have to do anything today.
Yes.
Or very much.
Yes, she approves.
I thought Senator-elect Jim Banks gave us some interesting info on how you go from being a congressman to a senator.
And that was the thing that was really interesting to me with the Sunday shows. So you had the 4 gains that Republicans made, right?
Yep.
Bernie Moreno, Tim Sheehy, Dave McCormick, and
Jim Justice.
And Jim Justice
with Lady or Baby Dog.
With Baby Dog. So you had those 4. But there are 6 new Republicans there because John Curtis replaced Mitt Romney in Utah, and we have the aforementioned Jim Banks replacing Mike Braun in Indiana.
Which is a big upgrade.
Which is great. So there's 6 new...
We're big fans of Jim.
We love Jim Banks. So there's 6 new faces of people that are going to be in the majority of the United States Senate. And what does Jake Tapper do on CNN, State of the Union? He brought in
Schiff and Gallego.
Adam Schiff and Ruben Gallego, because those are apparently...
Ruben Gallego has a paradigm for winning in Arizona.
Yes. We saw this story in the Washington Post where there's this long piece about how Ruben Gallego has this roadmap, this blueprint for how to win as a Democrat in a red state. And will anybody else in the country listen to him? Well, yeah, I know what his blueprint is, and you don't have to read a 4,000-word essay on what his blueprint is. I know what the blueprint is. If you're Ruben Gallego, run against somebody who can't win.
Well, look, I love Carrie Lake personally. I think she's a wonderful person. She's had 2 tough elections where she came close but didn't quite do it.
She underperformed Donald Trump
she
in all of the rural counties in Arizona that Trump absolutely dominated. She was under by 5, 6, 7 points.
And I
you got to do better.
I blame the Arizonans, but that's okay. It's their state. They're going to do what they're going to do, and you have to adjust that reality.
Right.
If it's if your plan is okay, run against somebody who's got problems as a candidate, yeah, okay, that seems like a good strategy to me. Not sure how much effect I can have over that, but yeah, great.
And that's really kind of the takeaway, though. We were talking about this during one of the breaks, is, we saw this poll about the 2028 Democratic.
Oh, it's beautiful.
But it's
beautiful, man.
But 2026 is really going to matter. And how that goes largely depends on how well the Trump administration performs in the next 2 years.
Especially in the economy.
Of course.
And if we can keep out of some wars.
That said, we have got to run some good candidates.
We did. We ran a lot of
Dave McCormick. There was a lot. Tim Sheehy. A lot of great candidates. Bernie Moreno. Great candidate.
Well, I can't wait till the next time I get to guest host for Hugh Hewitt.